Hey, this is Kyle Stowers, and you're listening to Fish on First.
What's up, Marlins fans? Welcome to a brand new edition of Fish on First Live here on the Foul Territory Network, presented by Jet Ski Rentals of South Florida. As always, I'm Eli Sussman, the founder of Fish on First. Got Nate Karsmer to my side, Sean Millerick below me, Luis Adio Weiss on the drive back from Tropicana to Miami as we speak. He'll be joining us as well from his on-the-grounds insight from this weekend as the Marlins lose another Citrus Series matchup in Tampa, as they do every single year, going back almost a decade now. We'll get into that in a moment. I wanted to start big picture right off the top here. So we'll get into the series shortly, but it really just struck me how all the good vibes that I guess it was really like isolated to the first week of the season, but it's been such a slow deterioration since then of this Marlins team. And it's been a slow turnaround for the teams that initially, early on in the season, they were kind of pointing down and laughing at. And it just struck me looking at the standings right now in the National League East. The Marlins, who were briefly in first place early in April, and for a lot of this season to this point have been comfortably in second or third, all of a sudden, half a game ahead of the Mets, 21 and 26, half a game ahead of the disastrous Mets, who've been the laughingstock of all of baseball, and now several games behind the Philadelphia Phillies, who were neck and neck with the Mets. It seemed like yesterday that both those teams were in the gutter, and the Marlins were, at the very least, kind of on track doing what they had done the previous year. Just looking at this, Nate, how does it hit you just to see the fact that the Marlins are essentially eliminated from any division contention, and all of a sudden, even the idea, it feels just a lot like last year, that at this same stage of the season, where creeping up on Memorial Day, they have so much work to do just to get back firmly in postseason contention.
Yeah, you're right. It's been very slow after the so much fun that we had the first week. Obviously, you knew it was the Rockies and the White Sox, but that was the last time this Marlins team has won consecutive series. It feels like they've lost nearly all of them since, but they're at least taking a game. Obviously, I feel like that Phillies one was really huge as they dropped 2 games that series, lose to the Orioles, beat the Nationals, and then this road trip was tough as well. Same issues that have been plaguing the team the entire year, which I'm sure we'll get into. Mainly everyone outside of the top 3 of Otto Lopez, Xavier Edwards, and Liam Hetch have just been super inconsistent the entire year. And pretty much that goes for the entire rotation as well, along with some of the guys in the pen. So it has been slow. I ruled out the division a while ago, honestly, just seeing how good the Braves have been. And we obviously know the Marlins' history. That's not really in the cards for this franchise for whatever reason. But the way that the Mets have been playing, the way that the Phillies are already back over 500 since Donnie Baseball has taken over up north, it's been slow. And it's not going to get any easier this upcoming week. This is going to be a big one, in my opinion. 4 games against, like I said, those Braves and the Mets, who the Marlins have been, it feels like, miles ahead of for most of the season. But they came back today somehow against the Yankees, and they're on their tail now. So Marlins going to have to defend Lone Depot Park this weekend, and then we'll take it from there, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Same to you, Sean, just absorbing where they are at this point, when it felt like they had a lot going for them, several pleasant surprises on the roster. They continue to have several pleasant surprises on this team, but being negated by weaknesses elsewhere. And now that basically all these series, when they've gone up against stiff competition, this is another example of them settling into their place and not even able to, even in any of these brief samples, not able to make up any sort of grounds here, even when there have been some winnable games in front of them.
Yeah, it's getting really hard to cling to those positives. We can point to the fact that things, and I see these conversations online too. If only some of those struggling guys get going, because many of the struggling players are the ones that were expected to do well, to be powering this club. Stowers, Marcy, on there. So they can start hitting their stride, and you just get some of that positive regression, factoring in, then they could be in a better position for that. There's a few close games, and some of those series where you can point to, if not for this play or that play, then their record's a little better. If they were 3 games, but if you flip 3 games, we probably feel much better in a lot of ways about the direction of this team. But you could say that about every baseball team every season, also. And it's just, something's not clicking right now. And it is really frustrating after that start, after what seemed like that gift from the baseball universe against them, starting 5-1 against that soft competition. They've just burned any advantage they had. So they really need to hit a gear we haven't seen from them since the first week of the season. Now going into this last couple of weeks of May against a lot of NL East competition on there. So it's, while you could still say it's early, it's not going to be on June 1st, and they need to do well over the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. We'll check in with Lewis now as he drives on his way back to Miami. Starting at the very end of the series, the finale on Sunday, the Marlins had a relatively early lead, a slim lead early on, and Eury Pérez ends up coughing it up. A game where I'll put up his final line right now so that everybody can see it. Oh, actually, I'll just put up his full season stats to this point. I feel like I didn't want to lead off with Eury because it feels like almost every time he makes a start the last month, we've kind of done a whole segment on him and what's wrong and what he has to do to get better, and feels redundant. It's just that from following the conversation as best as I can on social media, this felt like somewhat of a breaking point for people and their faith in Eury, a guy that he was their number 2 starter entering the season. I don't think anybody objected to that. The potential is so obvious. The Marlins banked a lot of their 2026 plan on him taking a step forward, and instead it's been a significant step back. So Lewis, you saw this one in person. He ends up getting through 5 innings, but really inefficiently, walks 4 guys in the process, allows a bases clearing triple to Taylor Walls of all people, and that ends up being really the deciding blow in this entire game, in addition to a couple homers that he allowed as well. That continues to be a bugaboo for him. So there hasn't been that single disastrous outing, Lewis, from Eury this season, but this was one of the worst ones, and there just has not been it's not getting any better, even though we've now been onto this for a while now, that his control just above all else, his control is not where it should be. And he bails out exactly when I pose that question to him. He's in the car. He's going to get back here. But Nate, let me get your Eury thoughts at this point. A guy that, as I just laid out, that expectations were so high, but felt like we're reaching a point where it's getting easier. It's getting harder to really defend that he continues to make starts every 5 days when he's not providing length. And weirdly enough, even though he seems fully healthy, he's not locating his pitches anywhere close to the way that he's capable of doing, you think?
Yeah, let me get caught on the pen here for Lewis real quick. I don't know what happened to our guy, but yeah, it's pretty much the same old thing that's been happening here. There's Carver. Okay, someone's back. Pretty much same thing that's been happening Eury all year, man. I was watching it with my dad, and then it was third inning. I'm like, wow, when Eury's on, he is so fun to watch. Next inning, watch start piling up, and then Taylor Walls, out of all people. I've heard many things about Taylor Walls. Hitting for power, especially a triple, has never been one of his fortes. And Eury stirs him up a 90-mile-an-hour changeup right down the middle. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be Taylor Walls. It could be Aaron Judge. Like we saw earlier this season, if you leave it up to a guy in the middle of the zone, it's going to get hit. And we've seen that the entire year. His pitch mix today, which I feel like I'm beating a dead horse once again every time we talk about it. His fastball, he's throwing it 50% of the time today. Let's see here. He threw it 35% of the time, so not as bad, I guess. But got 21 swings. The batters are sort of sit on it. So same old Eury. I don't know. I know Isaac posted him smiling. I don't want to take that too far. Obviously, it could have been just a twitch or something. I obviously don't think he's happy that he allowed a bases clearing triple at Taylor Walls, which ended up being the difference. Marlins lose this game by 3, but. The talent, like you said, Eli, is still there. It's unfortunate. I do agree with the ground ball pitch. If his sweep from is maybe a little bit more refined, he can throw that away from guys, get guys that chase and roll over a little bit more. But until that happens, like I said, we've all been saying that he gets mentally there and is able to work, and he can't rely just on his talents and have to mentally and spot some pitches better, just all around be more in. I feel like be more all in. I feel like just his stuff, like I said last game, it'll work in the minor leagues just on pure stuff. But when it gets to this point in your career and you're in the bigs, it's going to take more than that. And I think we're seeing that firsthand.
I think the interesting factor, Eli, to chime in on this. Mm-hmm. Hi, Sean. I don't think I've been on with you yet. What's up? I think the interesting part is that Kevin reported, I think Kevin and Lewis both reported that after the game, he said he's developing sinker. So maybe that can become his ground ball pitch, because I think I would agree. The stuff isn't what it used to be for this guy, and it sucks to say that, but his stuff is not nearly, especially a changeup, is not nearly as good as it used to be. Fastball, he's throwing an exorbitant amount of the time still, and like you said, Nate, hitters are just sitting on it. So yeah, I mean, maybe that can become his ground ball pitch, but they need to do something different with him, and that sucks, because I thought this guy had the swing and miss stuff to really succeed as a strikeout pitcher, but it doesn't seem like that is the case anymore. And to develop a pitch in the middle of a season, I think it's telling that the Marlins are admitting that, he's not the guy that they thought he once was. So, yeah, interesting in terms of where he's at in his career. I mean, he is still very young, as we all know, but to redefine him, or refine him, I guess I should say, by adding a brand new pitch in the middle of a season, whereas those things are normally saved for like spring training and stuff, to start to develop a new pitch in the middle of a season is telling in terms of where they think this guy is.
We're going to try Lewis one more time with his dicey connection on his drive back. Just starting off with some thoughts about Eury, Lewis, and anything that he mentioned post-game that he found interesting, but just in person, seeing this guy that he's been consistently mediocre for so much of this season. That combination of not throwing strikes as much as he's capable of, and also just getting barreled, allowing almost as many homers already this season as he did all of last season. So just your thoughts on this start in particular and where they go from here with him.
I mean, personally, like, if they were in a better situation when it came to depth, you would be okay with maybe either a Phantom IL stint or some time at AAA, just because it seems like right now, more than ever, Eury Pérez is a thrower before a pitcher. He is throwing, I mean, when you watch him pitch and he's, consistently flirting with or hitting triple digits with his fastball, and then when the secondary is working, it's great. Like, you kind of wonder how he doesn't have more success. But his inability to throw strikes, it just seems like whenever he's missing and then he's forced to throw a strike, hitters are, like you said, they're absolutely just demolishing, the ball off him. He's given up 10 home runs, I think, in 52 innings. He's allowed 12 in 96 last year. Like, it just feels right now that he's kind of lost. Like, watching him, the 2 years that he had pitched previously, it felt pretty good about the Marlins' chances whenever he was on the mound. And now it's like the uncertainty. I was telling, somebody this earlier today. It feels like he's kind of become the new Edward Cabrera, where it's just like you have no idea what you're going to get on a start-to-start basis. But on the road, you're kind of guaranteed that you're going to get a subpar outing because his ERA on the road is more than twice of what it is at home.
So there's one split I just want to touch on with him that blows my mind, and it kind of occurred to me as I was watching this game and I saw him get ambushed on a couple of first pitches. His splits this year on the first pitch of a plate appearance. Now, it's been a struggle for him the past couple of years in this category, but it's at a new level right now. On 0-0 counts, first pitch swinging, opponents are slashing 462, 500, 11, I need to say this right, 11-15 slugging percentage. Just the slugging percentage. The OPS against Eury on the first pitch this year is 1615. An 1,615 OPS. It is Barry Bonds on extra steroids in the prime of his career on the first pitch of his plate appearances. So that's only a relatively small fraction of the total outing that he has, but that's where a good portion of those homers are coming from, and otherwise well-struck balls. Let me see if I have the number. 3 of his home runs this year have come on those situations. I think one of them today also came on an 0-0 count as well. I think the Taylor Walls triple today came on an 0-0 count as well with him. So that is something that I think is pretty evident to him, where there's some sort of pattern there that I think opponents are ambushing, and that's one of many things. There's no quick fix here. There's a handful of things going wrong, a handful of areas where he's regressed, but that one just jumped out because I've never seen a split from a starting pitcher, even over a partial season, where they're just getting absolutely torn apart, especially from a guy that has that deep pitch mix that has added now a 6th pitch to his arsenal with that sinker, and to have that many options and still get absolutely blasted consistently in those situations, that's a lot of the difference between even what he was last year and what the step back he's taken this year.
I think the comparison that Lewis made, I made that same comparison like 2 or 3 shows ago to Edward Cabrera, and it really is. I mean, it's a guy that is throwing and, you know, just throwing to throw, pretty much a thrower rather than a pitcher. I think that's a great way to explain him. Just the pitcher's IQ on the mound, it's not there for this guy. He's going out and throwing every pitch as hard as he can, which that's what the Marlins tell pitchers to do. So I don't blame him for that. But I don't think he's really understanding how to sequence, how to mix. I know it's not up to him to mix, really. I mean, yes, he can shake off. I don't think that he's probably shaking off very much on the mound. I mean, I don't know that for sure. I'm pretty confident that he's probably just throwing whatever, you know, Marcelo tells him to throw. So it's definitely throw over pitch for sure. And then the comparison to Cabrera is very good because I think that they're similar players where the stuff is there and the talent is there. They just are not making the most of it because of their innate inability, I guess I should say, to really understand the craft, right? So the talent is definitely there. The stuff is definitely there. The understanding of the pitching craft is not. It wasn't for Cabrera, at least until he got traded, and it is not for this pitcher whatsoever.
I wanted to bring up one other somewhat related comment on here. People asking about Robbie Snelling, who was recently removed from the rotation on this road trip due to his UCL sprain scare, and it is a very scary situation for those. Colin is asking if there's an update on Snelling, and no, not at the moment. Perhaps as soon as tomorrow when this homestand begins, we will have an update. He's visiting a doctor, a specialist, a surgeon is another way of saying it. He's visiting a surgeon, and I think they're going to decide very early next week in terms of whether he requires a UCL repair or not. Either way, it's going to be a long absence for Snelling, and that's part of the conversation here, where there's not an obvious next man up for Eury. Thomas White has had an up and down season at Jacksonville. We anticipate him being major league ready later this season, but right now would seem rushing it from that aspect. Who do we think the next man up is, Nate? That's if they were to make the relatively bold decision to option Eury. I don't think it's happening right now, but if it happens in the near-term future, Braxton is already up in the rotation, and he had, you watch very closely, he had his uninspiring debut. So if the rotation is Sandy and Meyer, Junk, and Braxton, and Eury is squeezed out for developmental purposes, who would you go to potentially to fill that out?
A few options. Unfortunately, like we've all touched on in this past week, it seems like a lot of the Marlins, at least elite to good depth, is gone now. Robbie was a great addition last week. Obviously, we likely know what's inbound with him. It's probably going to be a long absence for Robbie. Then Braxton comes up. Like you said, I had the pleasure of watching recapping that game on Wednesday or Thursday. That was something. So I think at this point, you're going to dip into your depth a little bit. I guess Ryan Justo has experience at the level. You could go someone like Bradley Blaylock, who just dodged an injury, I'm pretty sure, Carver. Like you just reported that. So, again, not much experience for Blaylock at the major league level. He had a couple last year. Obviously, his numbers going to be inflated from pitching in Coors Field. Has not obviously appeared in the Marlins appeared for the Marlins in a big league game yet. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I would personally lean Justo just off the experience. I think better mix, in my opinion. And he's probably more familiar with Joe Matt. He's pitched to him before, especially last year. So if they were to dip down, like I said, I don't think this is likely, especially the Marlins staff's going to give Eury as many chances as he needs to succeed. But if that Phantom IL stint does hit, or they just want to send him down to correct some things, I think you go with Justo.
Yeah, I agree, most likely. And again, the reason why this seems a little unlikely is that there has not been that one total disaster outing. I was at the one in New York when he walked 6 guys, and most of those in like the first couple innings. It looked like that would go off the rails, but even then, he was able to make it through 4. He's made it through 4 innings in every single outing. He hasn't allowed more than 5 runs in any outing this year. And usually when you make a shakeup like this, usually when it really drives home that a guy needs work is when something goes terribly wrong, and that hasn't happened. It's just been this consistent string of mediocrity, where I think his first start of the season remains his longest start of the season, and there really has not been a single outing at all from start to finish that has looked dominant, even the way that he did a couple times last year, the way that he did on a relatively consistent basis as a rookie in 2023. Yeah, this is the prerequisite reminder that he's only 23 years old. He just turned 23. He is one of the, off the top of my head, one of the 10 youngest starting pitchers in the majors right now, if not even younger than that in more select company. So he's not expected to be peaking right now. It's just that he's not expected to be 2 runs worse on a ERA basis than he was as a rookie at this stage. The fact that he's regressed, even while still being evidently healthy, even while still throwing as hard as ever, it just shows that pitching is very complicated, and the Marlins don't have it all figured out for everybody. So it'll continue to be a process with him. I guess quickly we could touch on some other elements of the series. That middle game was a wild one. The Marlins lost the opener 7-2, relatively lopsided fashion. Jansen Junk struggled just as much as Eury did in this outing. In between, Sandy was great. He was great, and yet the Marlins and Rays combined for 15 runs in the middle game of that series, in part due to a crazy inning and an unprecedented rally in extra innings for the Marlins. It was 1-1 going into the 9th. And then the Marlins go ahead in the top of the 9th. Pete Fairbanks blows a save in the bottom of the 9th. And then the Marlins pull away in the 10th, end up winning 10-5 in this one. Yes, Sean, do you have any just quick thoughts about that Saturday game and the way that final score really didn't reflect how it went? For most of the day, the Marlins were struggling so much offensively. And then yet when you look at the final numbers, they are able to all join forces and turn it on at the same time in order to desperately needed win at that time to salvage something from this entire series.
Yeah, that was wild. I mean, for 9 innings, they deserved to lose. That game kept finding ways to do the snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Ridiculous error. I think 4 errors. Final on that in that game. Kicking it all over the infield. Guys who usually make plays not making them. Sanoja, Edwards, Lopez all struggled. Mac, who earlier in the game had an amazing play to keep the Marlins in this season and in that contest, then, just unfortunately had a throw go into center to help move the Rays into scoring position. It's a tough break for Fairbanks. It's another Fairbanks blown save, but he had plenty of help from his team in blowing that one. And then just this ridiculously positive gift in extra innings for the Marlins to do something I can't recall them ever doing. To that extent, I'm going off, just hitting around and everyone coming to score. That was one of the most. I think that was the most fun I've had watching them in weeks since that Dodger series.
Checking back with Lewis, one other obvious positive from this weekend that just jumped to mind is Jacob Marcy. He had 8 hits in this series and then got on a couple additional times. He was, it was awesome. This was right up there with his best weekend of the entire season as a whole. And now statistically, as you noted, even prior to Sunday's game, he's creeping back into at least replacement level territory. And even if you include today, he's now he's at a point where the offense is there. It's starting to, the luck is really turning around for him. He was a guy that was such an obvious victim of bad luck for the first month or so of the season and started turning around more so in late May. And then especially this past week and a half, he's been perhaps the most productive hitter on the entire team pretty quietly. And then really jumping into people's faces today, leaving no doubt that he's going to continue to be, they've dropped him in the lineup. A guy that was hitting in the top third of the lineup almost exclusively until a few weeks ago is now down to 6th on a pretty consistent basis, but that seems to be working for him. This guy now looks a whole lot more like the rookie Marcy that we were all so enamored with.
Yeah, I was looking at it earlier. I mean, he was one of the worst hitters in baseball for at least the first month of the season, and then he entered play on the 21st with a batting average, a WRC plus, I believe, of like 43. And after today, it's up to 91. He's still, somewhat below league average, but he's probably WRC plusing about 140 in a month's worth of games since. And kind of echoing what you said, yes, some of the luck has kind of reared its way back in his direction. Like today, he hit a single that the right fielder, Johnny DeLuca, could have caught. However, the ball fell in front of him, and people were noting, like, when you're going well, those things tend to happen. Base hits tend to slip through. But not even just that. I mean, like, he hit a home run on Friday. The plate discipline has not wavered. He's walking in 13% of his plate appearances. Like, and regarding him hitting sixth in the lineup, I kind of think, like, based off the small sample size of him hitting there, I kind of like him there. And I'll explain why. Like, I think with Otto and Xavier hitting the way that they are at the top of the lineup, and Norby at least being serviceable in the 5 spot, I think having Marcy when he's going well in the 6 spot or even lower sometimes kind of just lengthens your lineup, and, like, it doesn't make, it makes 1 through 9 a lot more difficult, or at least 1 through 6, especially when he's going well. Because, if he's hitting at the top of your order and hitting the way that he is, like, they're gonna score regardless. But it just to lengthen the lineup with him lower, where you have a non-guaranteed out. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, you have somebody like Joe Mack, who Sean talked about being, excellent at mitigating the running game, and he's done that ever since coming up. I have absolutely zero confidence in him at the plate. Like, people always said he could turn on a fastball, and the numbers rear that out for the most part. The surface level stats say he's hitting about 280 on fastballs this year, but he's batting like 150 against breaking and off-speed stuff. Like, the plate discipline that he showed in the minor leagues has completely evaporated in the big leagues. I think he's walked once and struck out 13 times. So, while Marcy's going good, Mac's going in the opposite direction.
Well, you did bring up Mac. So before we go to break, I want to check in with Carver on Mac's instant defensive impact, which has been pretty positive to this point. There have been a couple errors, a couple overly ambitious throws that he's made, but he's also caught 3 guys trying to steal and picked off a runner. To put that into perspective, you combine the entire season of Liam Hicks and Gus, and they combined for 4 caught stealings. So Mac has 3 all by himself in his first 10 starts as a big leaguer. The arm has been as good as advertised, although as Lewis alluded to, yeah, offensively, it's been pretty ugly transition, kind of as expected on that end for him.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised about the offense. I mean, this was always glove over bat, and when your defense is that good, that's what's going to happen. But yeah, no, it's not surprising to me in either way what he's done, both at the plate and defensively. It's both ends of the spectrum, whereas offensively it hasn't been good, and defensively it's about as good as you could possibly be, with some minor, over ambitious throws, I guess you could say, like that one from his knees in this series wasn't really smart. It goes into the outfield, and then the winning run winds up scoring, or at least tying run winds up scoring, I think it was. So yeah, it's outside of those couple of time frames where he's made a bad decision. I would say that he's been just about as good as expected. The other thing that he's really good at, on top of the pop times and the throwing arm, is the ABS. He's been really good with that. Gus was good with that before he got sent down to his credit. So it's good to see that both of those guys, Mac included, are embracing that system rather quickly. I mean, it was used in the minors before now, so they've had exposure to it before now, whereas some other catchers had less exposure to it. So maybe even expected that he's doing that, but his knowledge of the strike zone is definitely there from the catcher standpoint. I think it will get there offensively. So I'm not really worried whatsoever about these few games that he's been up, that he's, been swinging at breaking pitches out of the zone, about his contact rates. None of that stuff is really bothering me yet. And even if he's a 220 career hitter, what he does defensively excuses it. And I don't think he is. I think he's better than a 220 career hitter. But even if that is his floor and that's where he winds up, it doesn't matter. So the guy changes the game defensively. We've already seen it. He can change it offensively. He'll be quite a bit better than he is right now once he's up here for a longer period of time. Just needs reps. So I'm not really too worried. But if that is his future as like a 200, 220 hitter as a catcher, I don't care.
All right. Well, still a whole lot more to get to, including looking ahead to a very intimidating upcoming series against the Braves. First, as always, we're going to shout out our adoring presenting sponsor, Jet Ski Rentals of South Florida. As soon as I get Fairbanks off my screen right there. This podcast is brought to you by Jet Ski Rentals of South Florida, offering Miami's best jet ski and boat adventures. With 6 jet ski locations and over 120 boats, there's something for every style and every budget. Ride jet skis right in front of the downtown skyline and Ferris wheel, or book your own private boat starting as low as $300 with a captain included in that. Bring your drinks, your friends, and enjoy the water your way. The boat is completely yours for the time you reserve it. They're reservation-based only. To book, call them at 305-990-2192 or check them out online at sfjetskirentals.com. Make sure to use our promo code FISHONFIRST. That's all one word, FISHONFIRST, to receive 10% off your next booking. Again, that's 305-990-2192 or online at sfjetskirentals.com. And we're joined by Isaac on the other side. He can personally attest that SF Jet Ski, South Florida, Jet Ski Rentals of South Florida is owned by a great man, our boy George.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not sure if my mic is connected yet, but George was a great guy. We ran into him by accident at Dave & Buster's in Doral at Dolphin Mall. Very nice young man. Introduced himself to me, myself, Kevin Burrell, my co-host, and it was a great time. And we are so proud to be sponsored by Jet Ski Rentals of South Florida.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Anything else we want to get to here? I talked quite a bit about Kemp on the last stream. Kemp Alderman, who had 2 more home runs here on Sunday. I think we're going to hold off on that just because he had an injury scare at the end of Sunday's game. It looked to me, for people that have a very vivid memory, remember when Garrett Cooper blew up his elbow at first base when he was receiving a ball and a runner kind of ran into his throwing arm? It looked unfortunately a little bit like that. We don't know the severity at this point. Maybe it was nothing. He was taken out of the game. He wasn't very clear pain though. And Kemp is relatively new to first base. So that's kind of what really guts you, is that he was expanding his defensive versatility. He seemed to be a guy that was on the doorstep. Somebody that, as we talked about on the previous stream, somebody that you could see being in 1-to-1 internal replacement for Christopher Morel if that experiment grows tired. Which seems like we're getting somewhat close to that happening, but we'll have to make sure that he's actually healthy in order for that to go forward. I guess we'll get some final thoughts on this series. Anything else, Isaac, that jumped out to you from these 3 games? We talked quite a bit about Mac and Marcy and Eury, of course. But I guess we should touch on just the big theme here, which is that the Marlins have not won in that building at Tropicana Field since 2018, since the very first year of the Bruce Sherman era. So there have been years where the Rays have not been particularly good. There have been years like last year where these teams were almost on the exact same level. And yet, for whatever reason, it's been so lopsided, the Citrus series, whenever they go to that Forsaken Dome and play over there.
I failed to put my finger on it. It seems like they haven't had a problem hitting well in that ballpark. And even in some instances, pitching well. Like, for example, Sandy's complete game shutout in 2023. And 2018, where that team was arguably, maybe aside from 2019, one of the worst Marlins teams in recent memory. And they were able to win a series there. I just can't put my finger on it. This team in particular, the Rays 2026 team, it is a really irksome ball club. They just do not make mistakes defensively whatsoever. They do not swing and miss. They put the ball in play. And they just pitch outstanding. They make the right calls. And Kevin Cash, one of the longer tenured managers in Major League Baseball, he is pushing all the right buttons consistently. And this is a team you got to watch out for. I know this is a ball club that has not won a World Series in franchise history, but dear Lord, they were really tough to beat. And what's frustrating is that I thought Miami put together a really competitive series. Aside from game 1, I think they could have easily won game 3. I think they could have easily lost game 2 as well. I think they were very fortunate to be in the situation they were in. Sandy kept them in there despite poor defense. Bullpen did their job for the most part. I think they could have easily lost game 2 as well. So I'm not sure how to gauge this series in particular, but you got to love the competitiveness in games 2 and 3. But at the end of the day, it's another lost series. And that keeps Miami through mid-May, getting into late May, at only 5 series wins all season long. So it's frustrating. And I know we're going to talk about it now. It's not going to get any easier with the Atlanta Braves coming in for 4. The middle 2 of those games, left-handed starters who are very talented in Martin Pérez and Chris Sale. I'm not sure how much offense you can expect from Miami in those 2 games. And then the last game of the series with Sandy on the mound is against Spencer Strider, who I think struck out 16 Marlins, a few years ago. So it's just unfortunate. This is a hell of a stretch. We spoke about that. It was 26 games in 27 days or maybe something less than that. Yeah. After the 4-game set, then they go to Toronto. So it's just nonstop for the Marlins. They're going to have to make a plethora of roster moves going forward. But if they can somehow split the next series, that would help out a lot.
I guess one more thing, Eli, that we can point out about this series before we go on to the Braves, who are scary, as Mr. Isaac just noted, is Sanoja. I know he came into this series where he was on like a 3 for 34 or something like that, which is terrible. But I was just looking it up. This guy just gets hits in the clutch, and it's crazy. So I actually looked at this on the way home in preparation for the show just to see like how he does in the clutch. You look at late and close, the split late and close in games, and he's hitting 316, 435, 474 with a 908 OPS. So I don't know, maybe the Marlins have like their new Rick Renteria, who was like the secret weapon back in the 90s. For those that remember that name, they just put this guy in games as a pinch hitter and he went insane. Maybe that's who Javier Sanoja is, because he thrives in these late and close situations and clutch situations. Basically won that game yesterday for the team. So, I mean, pretty cool to see him succeed in those moments. I mean, a guy that we're talking about, Ruiz, the last show I think that I was on, a guy that like cares, that doesn't give up, that doesn't like just say, okay, we're down by 7 runs, I don't care, right? I'm still in the game, my mind's still in the game, and I'm able to come through in these big moments. You can't say that for every player, not only in baseball, but on the Marlins themselves. So, I mean, pretty cool to have a guy like that around that really, truly cares and that is able to show up in those situations.
Yeah, I haven't been able to gauge Sanoja quite yet. He got off to that crazy start, and it seems like sort of a consistent pattern here where guys get off the hot starts like Sanoja did, and then they don't play for a long period of time like Casey, like Sanoja, and then they start struggling out of nowhere. And it's tough. And during this stretch, he's been really dreadful offensively. And he's not particularly a fantastic third baseman. The versatility is fantastic in that sense, but he's just not excellent at any single one position. So he really has to make up for it with the bat. And when he's not hitting, it's really tough. But yeah, you're right. That first pitch, RBI double that almost left the ballpark at Tropicana Field was a huge hit. I mentioned it on Twitter. Arguably one of the bigger hits for this Marlins team all season long. Definitely the biggest hit for Sanoja's major league career. Not counting WBC stuff, but yeah, I think he should be the starting third baseman for the rest of the way until Marlins decide to make a move of some way, like whether it's Barry or Kemp. I think you got to think of a way to. I think Sanoja is better off when he is pinch hitting or coming in late into ball games, because playing every single day, we saw with John Birdie, you just sort of lose your touch when you're playing every single day when you're not supposed to be.
It's that kind of player too. And the Marlins have had it before. They're best when they're not playing every day. That's just who they are. They're better maybe watching pitchers from the dugout and then getting the best of them when they do get up there late in the game, whatever it may be. I mean, we saw with guys like Alfredo Amezaga, the Marlins saw it with that player. When he was an everyday player, he was not good at all. When he was coming off the bench, he was really good. So, I mean, It's just that kind of skill set where there's nothing wrong with it. And you need guys like that on winning teams. That's where he's best. Just like Jansen Junk's probably best in the bullpen. Like, guys have their niche roles. The Marlins are pressing him into everyday playing time because of depth that they don't have. So, I mean, if he's able to play in his most advantageous positioning and most advantageous role, he provides a good service to this team. He's just not playing in that role right now. And I think I agree with you. That's why he's struggling as much as he is. So, get him back on the bench. But the Marlins don't have anyone. Unless you call him Jacob Berry. They don't have anyone to play third base.
Right.
Or call him Graham Pauley. Like, they don't have that guy. So, that's where they're at.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I think Sanoja playing twice or 3 times a week is extremely valuable. I think they messed up by only starting him against left-handed pitching. And in that sense, now that you need him against righties, he hasn't faced a right-hander in spring training. So it's really tough for these players to only be facing opposite-handed pitching all of a sudden. And now, oh shit, you have to start him against Rasmussen. You have to start him against a bunch of right-handed pitching, and it's just a little bit tough. And I get why they're doing it. They didn't expect Pauly to be as bad as he was. They didn't expect Morel to be this shitty. They didn't expect all these guys to be underperforming the way they have. So they've had to pivot, but it sort of makes you understand why certain guys like Sanoja have struggled, because they didn't prepare to face right-handed pitching this often. And now they're being thrown into it, and you can understand the struggles.
Mm-hmm. We have to talk about what's next. The scary monster coming to Miami. These next 4 days, I think some people naturally assume a new series, a 3-game series. Nope, 4 games against the Braves. The only team that has an even better record than the Rays. Not just the better, I think they are pretty unequivocally the best team in baseball to this point in the season, because not only the record, it's the run differential too. Their run differential plus 98, which is 30 runs better than the next best team in all baseball. And this is a team that's been doing it for the most part without Ronald Acuna Jr. He hasn't been his normal self when healthy. He's currently on the IL. They have a handful of injuries that are still pretty significant to this team, and yet they keep on rolling. Another blowout win today to heading into this series. They've been just as good on the road as they have been at home this season. Talk to me about them, Nate. Again, no Acuna that we have to worry about this time, but there's a whole lot else, both on the mound and in both the rotation and the bullpen, and a lot of other guys in the lineup that are familiar faces, even a couple new unheralded faces. Like, this is a Braves team that everything went wrong for them last year. I think there were some early concerns that this year was going to be deja vu early on just because of injuries. And yet, performance-wise, this is back to their usual tricks. This is back to the team that we've seen throughout most of the 2020s that has dominated this National League East division.
Yeah, I do want to talk about those doodads you brought up. It feels like it's been a big Braves retribution season for Alex Anthopoulos, all the guys he's brought in. I mean, guys like Mauricio Dubon, Hai-Son Kim, old friend. I'm obviously not having a good season, but Sandy Leon, I can't believe he's still playing in MLB in 2026. That's absurd to me. Mike Yastrzemski, we obviously saw Dominic Smith earlier in the season in Atlanta when he had that huge, pretty much game-clinching double off of Pete Fairbanks. And guys like that have been there for a few years now. Michael Harris, I remember discussing last year on this time when the Marlins played their first set against the Braves that he was slumping, or maybe that contract before he reached arbitration wasn't worth it. He's been the best hitter on the team. You check out his savant profile. There's red everywhere. He's been raking the entire year. He's still giving you elite defense in center field. Matt Olson, Drake Baldwin as well. I guess we're getting an early look at who's the better catcher between Baldwin and Ramirez. Obviously, that was a big debate last year for potential Rookie of the Year debates, but we're seeing where that's ending up now. And obviously, the guy in the pitcher, Austin Riley, who's been raking as well this season. It's the same old Braves, just a bunch of different faces and no Acuna. So they're going to hit. And the Marlins offense, who has been supremely inconsistent, who I wanted to touch on that for a second. I've never seen a team put up a 10 spot and get shut out the next day or put up one run like the Marlins have. It's happened back-to-back series now. It's happened pretty much all year. So if the Marlins want any shot at splitting or taking the series, the offense has to be consistent and keep up with these Braves bats. And like I said, it's not going to be easy against two lefties in particular, Martin Perez and Chris Sale, who have been very good for a very long time.
Yeah, anything on your end, Sean, about this Braves team that I guess I don't know where to start. I mean, and the one thing that sticks out is even though despite their injuries, they've had a lot of continuity in their lineup from the guys that have survived the injuries. I'm looking at it now when seeing it's just like it's a reminder that they have a new manager too. The Brian Snitker era is over. That was supposed to be a cause for celebration after him being the manager the better part of a decade with this Braves team, and yet Walt Weiss has followed some of the same best practices in terms of just riding with his horses every single day. Matt Olson has played every single game. Drake Baldwin, as a catcher, has played every single game for this Braves team. Ozzie Albies every single game and a bounce back compared to last year. Austin Riley every single game. Michael Harris every single game except for when he was on the paternity list for 3 days. And since he's come back from that, he's been on there every single game. So I think that's part of the difference in philosophies between the Braves and the Marlins is that when they find something that works, they just ride with it. They do not tinker unless it is forced upon them. They just stick with what works. And it's been working pretty well since maybe the first couple weeks of the season is when things look dicey. And pretty much ever since they met the Marlins for the first time back in April, they've been rolling and they've had a lot of continuity in their lineup along the way. Gotta make sure that he's unmuted.
Decades of pain is the watchword with the Braves, so we can all attest to. So that's they're a machine, and as you said, you've seen this movie time and again with the Marlins. The most positive thing we can say about this series is it's not in Atlanta. It's the only thing that makes this worse. That makes you think they might have a shot if it's a 4-game series with Sandy in it. You'd like to think the Marlins have a fighting chance of a split, but Yeah, that's with two lefties, that's going to be a tall order, to pull off.
On the starting pitching side, because it is a 4-game series, we really don't have to dive too much into those matchups. We're going to see everybody in these rotations except for the most recent guys who have pitched. So it's going to be no Grant Holmes from the Braves side. It's going to be no Eury from the Marlins side, but it's going to be everybody else, including Spencer Strider, who's just a few starts back from coming off the IL, including Chris Sale, as you guys have mentioned, who is back on a Cy Young trajectory this season after missing so much of last year due to a pretty fluky elbow injury. And it's Martin Pérez, who I think signed for a minor league deal, either a minor league deal or like the lowest possible end major league deal. When the Marlins sign a guy like that, it's Austin Slater, and he's cut within a few weeks. And when the Braves sign him, it's a guy that is been amazing for them in 36 innings, putting up a 2.25 ERA to this point in the season. It's a pretty tough group right here. I did want to at least highlight on the Marlins side some of the things that they do have going for them just overall. The fact that they continue to get amazing production from both Xavier Edwards and Otto Lopez up the middle shouldn't be taken for granted that we're so deep into the season now. And both of those guys, offensively and defensively, but especially offensively, have been pretty awesome. I guess that's the one area where they have an advantage over the Braves, right? I could go to anybody on this. I could go to Lewis on this. That's the one area where they have an advantage over the Braves. I would think, is that middle infield spot where if those guys continue on their current trajectories, they're not only all-stars, but they're putting together some of the best, arguably the best all-around seasons that we've seen from Marlins players at those respective positions. They've just been incredible. And Otto in particular, the league's leading hitter as of this moment, entering almost 50 games into this season.
Yeah, no, I mean, Otto Lopez looks like a young Tony Gwynn with the ability to not strike out, spray the ball over the field, stealing bases, playing, good defense. Like he's been great. Xavier Edwards, who I was very impressed with after his first 3 at-bats. I think he started over 3 yesterday, reached base 2 times, scored a run late in the game yesterday, and then he had a couple of hits, I think, today, or a hit and a walk. Like, they are, in my opinion, I mean, I don't know if they're one, but they may be among the best middle infield combos in the sport. Like, the Braves kind of have a platoon with Dubon and Kim, and I don't even know if Kim is back yet. Someone can enlighten me on that to tell me. But, Albies had a resurgent year. But on the whole, the pair of, Edwards and Lopez, it's just an incredible combination of talent and performance thus far.
Ha-Seong Kim is now 5 games back from the IL to this point in the season, for those curious.
It's funny, you decided to compare Otto Lopez to Tony Gwynn, but not Xavier Edwards, who seems like the more comparable player.
Yeah, but Tony Gwynn never had the plate discipline that Xavier Edwards possesses, so that's in part where I'm coming from that. But although it is an apt comparison, given Edwards kind of also refuses to strike out.
Right.
Him and we're like sub 20% strikeout guys, which is, it's a big boon in today's game, especially considering the stuff they have. But I think they will be mitigated very much so against the likes of Chris Sale, who I think at this point is pretty much like wrapping up like his case as a Hall of Famer. Like, he won the Cy Young a couple of years ago. He did have, I know in that 1 year he won the Cy Young, the Marlins did get him for 5 runs, I think, in like 7+ innings. But at this point, like, it seems like he's aging, kind of like Justin Verlander, where you had a couple of years where you're like, I don't know what we're going to get from him at this point of his career. And then he just turns the switch on and he's throwing 98 again, and his slider is still as loopy and nasty as ever. So, I mean, that's the one game I can already guarantee I know the Marlins are gonna lose. But who knows? Baseball's a weird game. They could win that one. We may get good pitching from Miami, so we'll see.
Yeah, I liked what Lewis said about Edwards starting over 3 the other day. Hicks sort of had a little bit of, not a fantastic series from what I saw, but every time that you think these guys are going to start coming down to earth a little bit, they come through with just incredible at-bats and spraying the ball all over the place and coming through with what the team needs in those situations. And this is one of the best threesome of bats that Miami has had in a long time, albeit it's not a huge bar. But, I mean, between Hicks, Otto, and X, I don't think Miami could have asked for much more. Unfortunately, you've seen huge steps back from other guys that you thought would be a lot better. But it was a hell of a series for Marcy. Who knows when Ramirez will be back? But to answer your question, Lewis, it's by far the best middle infield in all of Major League Baseball.
To answer and to like echo the sentiment that you were talking about earlier, I genuinely think that, you know, the likes of having Hicks, Edwards, and Otto hitting in consecutive order in the lineup, all three guys who refused to strike out. Liam Hicks did strike out yesterday and today, but like, I think that's why the Marlins are in so many of these games. Like, they're in these games because they have guys who possess the ability to put the ball in play. And I think Marcy is going to kind of settle into that too, because he's not really striking out right now. So yeah, I mean, if you just need the pitching to be more consistent. I think the offense isn't as much of a problem. I think it's the timeliness of the hits. You know, Liam Hicks, if he could hit every time with runners in scoring position, he would be hitting like Ty Cobb, because he's batting like 370 with runners in scoring position this year with a 900 plus OPS. So, you know, it's just the timing of, you know, when they're getting hits is, you know, not correlating with the success that they're having. So, or it is, I guess.
Put some numbers behind the strikeout, the lack of strikeouts from those guys in particular. Hicks in the 99th percentile in baseball in strikeout rate. Xavier Edwards in the 97th percentile. Otto is slacking in the 75th percentile, which is, you know, still better than 3/4 of all hitters. But yeah, he's the one that, despite that, is the one that has found the most hits overall coming from his side. A guy that all the expected stats say that he was better than his 2025 version, that the results wise that he got last season, but the jump that he's made is, I think, surpassing anybody's reasonable expectations. The last thing that came to mind for me with this series, just seeing how Braxton is starting a game. This isn't fair to him because he's faced the Braves a gazillion times, but I'll never forget the one game that he started against them at least 3 years ago, when in Miami, when he allowed 13 runs to the Braves. For whatever reason, that still sticks very vividly in my head. It must have been either 2022 or 23. I think 2022, where he got just absolutely destroyed, and the Marlins left him to wear that even when the game got really far out of hand for whatever reason. So he's a guy that has faced the Braves more often than anybody else in this rotation outside of Sandy, and he's had some good outings against him, but for whatever reason, that is still drilled into my mind. To reiterate, he was awful in his season debut, uncharacteristically couldn't throw a strike, loaded the bases with nobody out in each of the first two innings against a far inferior Twins offense. He's got a lot to prove, even with Eury struggling himself. Braxton's not necessarily going to get the longest leash if, for whatever reason, these control issues persist, because Carver, as you know really well, he needs to get ahead in counts to be successful. He's the guy in this rotation that is never going to overpower you. And when he's been successful in the past, it's when he's been getting ahead and operating from there. So it's going to have to be a much different story than what we saw in his 2026 Marlins debut earlier in the week.
Yeah, I think in that start, the most, not disturbing, but the most unfortunate thing was that he just didn't have that new sweeper really working well at all. Couldn't place it really at all where he needed to, like you said, getting ahead with it. It's been at times his most used pitch. So when it's working, it's his most used pitch. So when he has to kind of deviate and go back to fastball curveball, is where he struggles. And that's what you saw him do in that last start. He was back to fastball, curveball, a lot of fastball, and then even reinstituting curveball, which when he's starting the sweeper, while he doesn't really even have to use the curveball, it's more so like a mix-in for him, if anything. With how he's been kind of recreated by the Marlins in recent years, that pitch, which used to be his best pitch when he was coming out of high school and stuff, now the sweeper has replaced it. So to see him kind of have to deviate back to that is how you know that something was off in that start that he had in his debut. But hopefully, you know, it's going to be hard to do against this lineup. But, you know, back at home for Braxton in Miami, maybe still bad taste in the mouth from, you know, that game you're talking about, Eli, against the Braves from a few years ago. So, yeah, I mean, just want to see more of that sweeper, which is his best pitch, you know, and then getting ahead with fastball. He has to place the fastball. It's not going to be, you know, not even maybe 95 every pitch. He's going to sit like 92, 93, maybe ramp to 95. But then with how he incorporates that sweeper, that's kind of how he sequences best, is when that pitch is working. So if that pitch is back and working and he's placing it well, I think he'll do okay. And we can expect at least like 5 innings out of him. If it's not against this lineup, it's going to be ugly.
I'm with you, Carver. I think it's that outing against Minnesota is going to end up more so being a blip. I mean, Braxton Garrett's been in this organization for a decade now. We know his calling card. He doesn't walk guys like that. And it's funny because I remember his first spring training start I covered in Dunedin, and he walked his first 2 batters. And like, was there some nerves out there? He said, yeah, of course there was. He no hesitation said there was nerves. So I can only imagine what the nerves were like first time pitching an actual major league game in almost 2 years. So I assume it was just nerves, fall behind the guys. Going to have to just throw some cookies up eventually, and they're going to hit him. So I think Braxton coming back around. I did double check Eli. That was 2023 because I remember he was trying to recover from that start the entire rest of the season. The guy was top 3 WAR on that team, and that one start still tainted his ERA. But I don't think the opponent's going to matter much. I think Braxton's going to get feet on the ground back in Lone Depot. And I just attack these guys, man, because I think these Braves tend to come to a lot of weak contact. They swing the bat a lot. So if Braxton is able to do what Braxton does, like Carver said, incorporate that new sweeper, spot his fastballs, I think we're going to see a lot better 2023 like Braxton Garrett against the Braves.
Yeah, that's certainly the hope, and I am very confident in Brax as well. It's one of the better humans in the clubhouse, as well as just one of the more talented off-speed pitches that the whole organization has. But we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we weren't thinking, okay, let's say Braxton is not the same guy that we thought following multiple elbow surgeries, and then you see Eury continue to struggle. Where can Miami go from there, right? The depth, I don't know if we've mentioned it already on the show, but I'm not sure where this team can go. This is not the position that Miami thought they would be in mid-May, because the guys in AAA Jacksonville, Gusto and Blaylock, are not exactly someone that you'd want to plug into a rotation. Thomas White still dealing with some issues. I think he's maybe more of a July candidate to be called up. And if Eury doesn't figure it out and Braxton sort of has another blip, what do? I think you have to go outside the organization. I don't know what the team – do you rush Carson Milbrand? If this team is really adamant on competing this year, you would have to do something unorthodox like calling up a new Carson Milbrand, but I don't think they would. So what do you do if these things continue to, go to shit?
Mm-hmm. It's a creation of their own doing. When you're telling guy, and I mean, maybe it's something that should be important article for him. I think it is, but I'll continue to say it. When you tell guys to go out and throw as hard as you can every single pitch, this is what happens. You burn through arms because they are literally going out there every single time, and it's full bore every single pitch like you're in high school. So if that's the strategy of the organization, they can't be surprised when guys are going down with elbow injuries, when Robbie Snelling's making his debut and going down with an injury, when your best arm in AAA right now to call up is a guy like Ryan Gusto or Bradley Blaylock, right? Like, that's what's going to happen, and it's their own fault. So, I mean, yeah, when it works out and when these guys are healthy and when they're at their best, it works and it looks really good. But you're going to burn through guys very quickly, and like highly touted prospects falling down with season-ending injuries. And where do you go if you want to compete? As Isaac said, right now they would have to go outside of the organization unless they call it Milbrand. I don't think they would do that. He's not even in AAA yet. I think he's going to be given most of the season in AA. So it would have to be from outside of the organization, which means, guess what? Spending money. So, and you know how the Marlins are with that. So they're kind of stuck between rock and hard place here. And like I said, it's nobody's fault but their own with how they are having that strategy of go out and throw 100% every pitch.
Yeah. From the FCL all the way to the major leagues, you're seeing a little bit of a pattern there, unfortunately. And it's frustrating. There's other creative things they could do. Josh White is throwing multiple innings all the time. Tyler Phillips has sort of been stretched out a bit, but I don't think that's the direction you really want to go to here. So it's something's going to have to give. And hopefully Brax, that would be best case scenario, is Brax can turn it around. And the fact that you were able to replace Snelling with someone with the caliber of Brax is great. But if that doesn't work out the way they wanted to, then I really think they're running out of options.
All right.
You could really use a Chris Paddock right now. I know no one wants to hear that, but
He made his debut with the Reds. For those who didn't see it yesterday, he gutted through 5 innings. He only allowed 2 earned runs, but he was on a short leash as expected, and there was quite a bit of traffic going on around him. I don't think they're missing him that much. It's they're put in a tough spot with Paddock, as we've discussed before, where they would have liked to have his depth to hang around for perhaps a situation just like this, but couldn't option him to the minors, of course. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to hide him in the bullpen, and they made a call, and almost as soon as that decision was made, all of a sudden you have some apparent openings in this rotation due to injuries that you just can never know when those injuries are going to occur. Even though, as Carver kind of laid out, you can anticipate some injuries along the way due to the style with which these pitchers are throwing and the effort that they're exerting, but you just don't know when exactly they're going to happen. And the Snelling one strikes basically a week after Paddock is out of the organization.
Yeah.
So
the
with that being said,
the timing and like velocity, no pun intended, of them is about as bad as it could be. So, but yeah, I mean, it's difficult if you're looking for options outside of those two guys that I said. If you're looking for options that are like those true game changing players within the organization, there's very little right now, and a lot of them are injured. So
it's frustrating too. You think back to just in the offseason, when they thought they can still get value out of some of their more injury prone arms. They made those trades. They traded Cabrera, they traded Weathers. That if you're picking which elbows to move, it seems like you would think they picked the right ones in the offseason. From that kind of track record, and then the season plays out the way it plays out.
Yeah, that was my next point. You could really use Ryan Weathers right about now. As fun and exciting as we think Dylan Lewis could be, he could really use another arm, especially a left-handed arm. But
Luis Palacios, call him up.
Hey, I have him in the call-up contest, I think.
Mm-hmm.
No, I do, and I actually there's people on Twitter laughing at me for picking him, but especially with where we're at now, the very likely possibility that he could eat some innings. Anyway,
well, there's one thing we can guarantee is that he will throw strikes. So that's about it.
Yes. Let's get out of here on prediction time.
This is prediction time.
That's my prediction, but who knows?
As we always do, looking ahead to this upcoming series, our staffers, our live stream guests, our super subs predict how many games the Marlins are going to win in this upcoming series, who will be the series MVP as determined by win probability added. The leaderboard is up there in the corner if you want to scan it and go over there, see how everybody's doing. But I'll give you a sneak peek of it right here, coming off this most recent series, a high-scoring series. Most people had correctly had the Rays winning this one, and a lot of them were perfect with Yandy Diaz as the MVP. We have a tie atop the leaderboard between our frequent stream contributor Jeremiah Geiger and one of our super subs, that's Nicholas Milton, his username. Sean Millerick not far behind. He's in a tie for third place, and you can get the general overview right there. The underlining names are part of the FOF staff, and our super subs mixed in there. Still have close to 24 hours to make your predictions in advance of this Brave series. We have to reiterate, it's a 4-game set, not 3. So series split is in play. That'd be a pretty fortunate outcome for the Marlins, all things considered, given the gaps in talents and recent production between these clubs right now. So I'll cue up the music. We'll go around this group for your predictions. Start with Mr. Isaac. Go ahead, sir.
Gap in talent, indeed. I think Miami will surprise some people here. I think they'll feel the need to win some ball games. I think they split the series 2-2. Series MVP, Sandy Alcantara, complete game on Thursday.
Sean Millerick, your prediction.
It's a really hard thing to win a 4-game series. I'll go with the home team managing a split as well. So Marlins split the series, and Drake Baldwin is the series MVP.
Louis Adio Weiss, your first prediction time appearance of the season. What do you have for us?
We're going to take 3 of 4, and we're just going to series will probably work to make some plays at first base. I think I got the Braves taking 3 of 4.
Very eloquently said. To translate, he said Braves taking 3 out of 4. I didn't get your MVP. Who's your series MVP, Louis?
Jeez, we're going to need some editing.
We're going to need to inform you guys after the fact, just so that you're on the same page. Just go to Nate.
Oh, how many did I go after that? All right, I'm with Isaac. I have the Marlins splitting this series. I think there's going to be some urgency in this squad. They're going to stay in the fight, hang around for a little bit longer. We just saw Jacob Marcy have a huge series. I think another lefty bat, our guy Kyle Stowers, 98th percentile in all of baseball and hard hit percentage. He's going to break out. It's coming. I think he has a couple of jabs against the Braves. Gets on track, helps his Marlins team split.
Alex Carver, your predictions.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is definitely a sense of urgency at this point. I think that Braxton will come back well from that start, as we kind of alluded to during the show. And then Sandy, I think, will do well again. I think he's back. I think Sandy has looked really good in these past 2 starts. So Marlins series split, but I'll go with the other side. Spencer Strider, I think this is the start where he truly gets going this year, as he recently just returned. So Spencer Strider, complete game shutout. He's the MVP.
And I will take us home here. Some housekeeping. Lewis's prediction was the Braves winning 3 out of 4 and Matt Olson as his series MVP, just so we have that on the record. I need to actually acknowledge, the direction this Marlins team is headed, even though it's very difficult for me instinctually to go against a split, because so often these 4-game sets do wind up in a split. I think this is going to be a rare exception where one team has the edge and the Braves win 3 out of 4 in the course of this series. I'll go with Ozzie Albies as MVP. They're really, it's hard to pick a bad Braves hitter candidate just because as we went through, they take the field every single day. They get a lot of reps, are in there in a lot of different situations. And I think Albies, at the very least, is somebody that puts the ball in play so often. One of the comments that we got earlier that I thought was worth reiterating again is that this Marlins defense is just not what we probably hoped it would be entering the season. Had a 4-error game just on Saturday, somehow won that game. But outside of Joe Mack, there aren't a lot of positions where they're getting true plus defense. And that means if you put the ball in play against them, you have a better chance than usual of getting some results from it. Braves taking 3 of 4, Ozzie Albies MVP. Marlins fall to 7 games below 500 if it plays out that way. That will be our show. Fish on First Live here on the Foul Territory Network, presented by Jet Ski Rentals of South Florida. We went 6 guys deep on here, not all at the same time, except here at the end, this final segment. Eli Sussman, Isaac Azout, Sean Millerick, Louis Adio-Weiss, Nate Karsmer, and Alex Carver. So we'll have another stream at the end of this Braves series, 4-game series. So 4 days from now is when we'll have another stream on Thursday night. Hope you guys join us for that. A whole lot of coverage between now and then on fishonfirst.com, all of our social media accounts. And we appreciate everybody for the support as well. So we'll have another podcast between now and then, Fish Unfiltered with Isaac and Kevin and AJ Ramos. And we'll have a special guest, I imagine, on that episode as well, that for people to look forward to. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast to Fish on First. And that's where you could get all of our live streams and all episodes of Fish Unfiltered. So again, thanks again for tuning in, for sticking with us during this lull in the Marlins effectiveness on the field, but we'll be here through thick and thin for you throughout this 2026 season. As always, go Fish.